is also Member of Parliament for Choma in Southern Province. Honorable, welcome to Prime TV, specifically welcome to Okti.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on this very important Prime TV flagship career program, Oxygen of Democracy. I haven't been here for a very long time. You are doing fine.
Great, thank you so much for those kind. Remember, this is an interactive program. There is a number on the screen which you can use to be part of the conversation later on. The phone lines for your contribution, but also don't forget that we are live on various social media platforms on Facebook, Prime Television Zambia. Go there as well. Drop in your questions, comments, and contribution. Of course, before we close, we will also read out some of your messages. Honorable Minister, let's begin by understanding the cause of this by the family of ECL and of course the government represented by Secretary to Cabinet, and of course there were agreements. Wednesday was the date that was scheduled for repatriation of ECL, but things changed. Let's begin from here, Honorable Minister. What is the cause of this impasse?
Well, thank you very much for again having me on this important program, and so that we can interact with the rest of the citizenry. And for us as government, I would like to indicate that this impasse right from the start is regrettable. We do believe that in the Zambian way, whatever the perceived differences may have been, we shouldn't have allowed ourselves as a people to reach this stage, because where we are now is beyond, in terms of perception, it is beyond a family discussion. It is beyond a discussion between a political party, the family, and just government, but it is a discussion that has engulfed the whole nation, let alone the SADC region, the African continent. Zambia has been placed on the global spotlight as a source of information which unfortunately is not the right kind of information that should have been coming out of this particular country, given what is pertaining in terms of the trajectory of the developments that are taking place in this country, that have given a positive vibe to the continent and to the global village on what this country is all about and the growth trends that we have seen recently. I must indicate here and place on record that on the side of government, yes, it must be admitted that former President Edgar Lungu, and may so rest in peace, was a competitor, a fierce competitor to President Hichilema, especially a fierce competitor, especially when President Edgar Chagwa then was in office and the current head of state, President Hakainde Hichilema, was in the opposition. But competition is not enmity. There is no stage we in government, under the able leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema, looked at former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, or indeed any other political leader in this country, opposition, being viewed or perceived as an enemy to President Hakainde Hichilema or to administration. So the impasse, therefore, that has arisen after the untimely demise of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is truly on the part of government regrettable, and it is the desire of government that all options must be left open on the table towards an amicable solution and resolution of this impasse, so that the former president can be given a befitting, dignified farewell, and one taking place with the full participation of the citizens of this country, and that it is a desire of President Hakainde Hichilema and his administration that the remains of the former president, Zambia's 60th president, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, should be interred or be put to rest in his homeland.
That's the position of government.
That is the position of government, and this position arises out of the precedents that we have set for ourselves as a country, beginning with all the 5 former presidents who have passed on. They are all buried at one place which is called the Presidential Burial Site, the Embassy Park. And this tradition we have set for ourselves is very important, because that site serves as a very important symbolic reminder of our national identity and unity. Because regardless where this president or former president originated from, at their death, they've all been put in one place to symbolize the unity of our country, and that they were presidents for all Zambians. Former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu was a president for all Zambians, like any other Zambian president. In South Africa, where he unfortunately passed on from, he was not a citizen of South Africa. He was not there as in any other capacity other than, as it is now playing out to be, to receive medical attention. He was not there in exile or any other capacity that could confer upon him, from where we stand, a status to justify.
But we know the reasons,
can
Minister.
be.
Sorry to cut you short. The Zambians have been told, there's a briefing by, of course, a joint press briefing, which I alluded to earlier in my introduction. Makebi Zulu representing the family and Dr. Patrick Kangwa representing government. There were wishes that ECL had, which many have alluded to as the reason why he's even being buried in South Africa. He didn't want President Hakainde Hichilema to be present at the funeral, anywhere near the funeral of ECL. But government is adamant, government is stubborn, government is insisting that President Hakainde Hichilema must be present, even when it was indicated by ECL, like we've heard from the family, that they didn't need him.
Well, thank you. We have heard those sentiments, and we were not there where those sentiments or wishes were being expressed. So it will be difficult for me here to argue against those wishes, save to indicate that in the past we have seen and heard of wishes being made by a sitting president. For instance, President Mwanawasa had his own wishes which I think were even on video.
Which he even put in a will.
He even put in a will. We've also been told before, as a country, that former President Dr. Kenneth Kaunda had wished that he be buried next to his wife at a private farm in Chinsali. All those were wishes, and at law, a will cannot easily be overridden, because that is the final act of instruction of a deceased. And indeed, this is in line with what my former lecturer, John Sangwa, said. Safe to indicate that when a will has been expressed in a manner that those who are administering it see that it has gone beyond certain expectations, those are circumstances where you hear that a will has been set aside by a court of law. For instance, if you're going to have children and dependents, and you draw a will that upon my departure, all my estate should be taken to an orphanage, such a will at law can be treated in a manner that does not take into account the interests of those people who are looking up to you, and therefore the courts will be justified to set it aside. Now, in this particular case, we as government are not insisting.
Oh, you've been insisting, Honorable Minister.
We are not.
It will be lying to the nation if you say you've not been insisting.
I'm saying are not insisting from without. We have been expressing our desire that the former president be put to rest his homeland, based on the established practice that we have developed over time for ourselves. Like I've indicated, 5 former presidents buried in one place. So that has maintained a shared memory of us as a people, and even protecting and preserving a united history for the next generation to see that we are one people. So, government's position to request the family that the former president should be put to rest in his home country is also precedented by law. You remember the case of the People vs. Secretary to Cabinet expert, Kaweche Kaunda, who, representing the family, had said that President Kaunda had to be buried elsewhere. I must now indicate also that this practice of putting to rest our presidents and or former presidents at Embassy Park is no longer just a mere practice. It has now evolved to assume the force of significant legal force, because it is one which the courts have indicated, like in the case I've alluded to, that private interests are overridden by national interest, as the case was in the Kaunda case, and we believe the case is in the Lungu case.
But the family has no qualms about repatriating the body of ECL to Zambia and being buried in his homeland. The question is arising from your insistence as government to have President Hakainde Hichilema present. Why? And people have asked, why can't he delegate so that this impasse is sorted? He seems to be insisting that he has to be present. On the 15th of June, that joint press briefing, it was clear that there was an agreement on Sunday. President Hichilema was supposed to preside over the state funeral service with other presidents from other countries. But the program that, and the family had a huge problem with that, the program that was circulating, which Secretary of Cabinet, indicated that that was not the authentic program, indicated that President Hakainde Hichilema will also be there at the airport, will also open the body viewing on Thursday, a situation that made the family uncomfortable.
Well, first of all, I must indicate here now, and very clear and categorical, that on the part of government, government did everything reasonably expected of a government under the circumstances to keep their word. It must also be understood here that the things we do today, as a government especially, have far-reaching consequences and ramifications going forward. What we decide to do today, whether for purposes of conveniency, for the family, for a political party, or in government, will set a precedent going forward that could create a reference point for the future. And it is our desire, really, that the citizens of this country, and I believe they do so, understand and to disaggregate an individual called President Hakainde Hichilema and the President of Zambia, the institution which represents all Zambians regardless of political affiliation. That institution has obligations and mandates
even
and
against the wish of the
responsibilities.
family, Honorable Minister, even against the wish of the family, just because there's a responsibility for President Hichilema to preside, your government will go against the wishes of the family. Isn't that bulldozing your way, especially when the wishes have been tabled clearly?
And I don't wish that I begin to make references here because this is not the first losing a former president. And so the arguments we are having have already, we are walking on a trodden path. Because when the late former president, Dr. Kaunda, passed on, and there was that wish to bury him at a private farm, the government of the day then, to which now the former president was actually the president at the time of the passing on of Kaunda in June 2021, told the nation that as government they were going to bury Dr. Kenneth Kaunda at Embassy Park with or without the family. So that's what I'm saying, that we are walking a trodden path. So the things we've said before, those circumstances should not now change because we have a person called Hakainde as president that some people may have certain views about, which is normal because in a democracy, that is the whole essence. It is diversity in unity. So these things have been for.
But Honorable Minister, the compromise by the family, and they agreed that on Sunday, government through President Hakainde Hichilema will preside over the state funeral service with other heads of state. But when the program came out, it was a different program. President Hakainde Hichilema was not only appearing on Sunday, he was also appearing on Thursday at Mulungushi International Conference, being the first one to open up the body viewing. He was also appearing at the airport on the day of arrival of the remains, something that unsettled the family. And I want you to answer my question.
And I want to answer it this way, because I listened to Makebi Zulu, the one who is speaking on behalf of the family, and listen to the arguments he put across. In broad terms, he brought about two issues. Number one, he said that it was not agreed by the parties, or should I say by the family, that government through the Road Development Agency should grade the road leading to the residence of the former president, and that DA announcing to grade the road, that was an affront to the agreement that was between the parties. And then the other issues for which you are now asking, the execution of what was agreed had not begun, and there is no time at which government began to put in motion any allegation coming through. I would now like to indicate to the nation that we in government, and particularly the president, were and was taken aback with that impromptu announcement of South Africa that the family would not repatriate the body as initially arranged for Wednesday, without any prior engagement or with government. Remember that
that's not true, Honorable Minister.
On the part of government, they signed individuals with the family and the team of the party.
Kebbi Zulu did indicate that that night before the day of repatriation, he had called Secretary Cabinet Dr. Kangwa asking about the program that was circulating and how come the program were not shared with the family. So definitely government.
I'm giving you,
because you said that contact the government, which is true.
I'm giving you government position. I'm giving you government position. Remember that around this particular funeral, there have been so much rumor mongering. There's been so much, speculation. Even social media, you will board that so many heads of state are en route into South Africa but there's been so much need to decipher truth from misinformation, and my duty is a noble at all times.
Are you saying Makebi lied that he had contacted
at all times?
Cabinet?
I don't speak for Makebi Zulu.
You're speaking about he contacted government through Dr.
I'm telling you that I don't speak for Zulu. I speak for government.
Exactly, and that's my question.
And speaking for government, say, on the side of government,
there was no communication.
We were taken aback that whereas we were wanting the body to be repatriated, the only thing, the first contact point of a developing story was that the family decided not to repatriate the body.
There are calls, Honorable Minister, now from different stakeholders, because the information that we're getting is that the burial will proceed this coming Wednesday in South Africa. That's information that we are, seeing from different, on different platforms from the Patriotic Front and of course the Lungu. But there are calls. Just yesterday, Father Chikoya also made a call that what's wrong with President Hakainde Hichilema just taking a backseat, allow the Lungu family to repatriate the body, agree that he will not be present. In that way, the remains of ECL will be buried in his homeland. Even Apostle Kunda as well has made this clear on Kwana. I would like us to hear from Apostle Kunda making a plea to government that can you compromise? Can you allow the remains of ECL to be, put to rest in his homeland by simply compromising, by simply the president announcing that he will not be present? Nothing much will happen. But let's hear from Apostle Kunda.
Mr. President, to hear the demand of the family where we can bury the body of the former president in this nation. I think this is the time to listen to their demands, to their wishes. If you listen to their wishes, I think we'll sort out this matter. It will not be well to bury President Lungu in South Africa I think it will be the failure of the leadership in this country. And the failure of the leadership of this country, every one of us will be loved. And every one of us, I have friends who are calling me to say what is happening in your country. I think this is the time. My appeal to UPND government, especially to His Excellency, the President of Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. This is the time, sir, just to follow the demand of the family. And it shall be well with this country that we love, the nation that we love and we cherish. Thank you so much, sir. My humble appeal, let us follow the demand of the family. And the government to help to facilitate all the necessities that is needed. God bless you. Let us follow the demand of the family. And the government to help to facilitate all the necessities that is needed. My humble appeal to our President Hakainde Hichilema, I think this is the time, Mr. President, to hear the demand of the family, where we can bury the body of the former president in this nation. I think this is the time to listen to their demands, to their wishes. If you listen to their wishes, I think we'll sort out this matter. It will not be well to bury President Lungu in South Africa. I think it will be the failure of the leadership in this country. And the failure of the leadership of this country, every one of us will be loved. And every one of us, I have friends who are calling me to say what is happening in your country. I think this is the time. My appeal to UPND government, especially to His Excellency, the President of Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. This is the time, sir, just to follow the demand of the family. And it shall be well with this country that we love, the nation that we love and we cherish. Thank you so much, sir. My humble appeal, let us follow the demand of the family. And the government to help to facilitate all the necessities that is needed. God bless you, sir, and God bless our nation.
Of course, that is Apostle Kunda, but also we have heard from Father Chikoya making those calls, Honorable Minister, making an appeal to the government, making an appeal to President Hakainde Hichilema to listen and respect the wishes of the Lungu family. And many have argued that that would be the easiest way to also ensure that the remains of ECL are buried in his homeland, but government doesn't seem to be listening.
Well, first of all, I must place on record that the government has not at any stage during this process indicated that they were going to block the bringing into the country of the remains of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. And just like the president indicated in his address, he said that we were shocked, to put it that way, about the turn of events that, contrary to what was expected to have taken place, Wednesday were treated to an announcement without indicating when this would be, and clearly just setting aside what had been agreed upon. So, to begin to create an imagery that the government should allow for the body of the former president to come, there is no point where the government has said no.
No, the reason, Honorable Minister, the reason is because government is insisting that President Hichilema must be there.
And I want to put it this way. One, the government has not stopped the family from bringing the body. Number two is a funeral. I must respect a funeral. And a funeral wishes, they are of either the deceased or the family. And the precedent has already been alluded to before, of wishes that have been overridden by national or public interests.
So the call for President Hichilema not to be present overrides the interests of the nation.
Let me finish the point. Number three, remember, I earlier on spoke about an individual, President Hakainde Hichilema, as an individual, a person, and the presidency of this country with it to execute all duties assigned to and or related to and incidental to that office. That must be had in mind. Number four, when we talk about former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, the late president, yes, we must at all times respect the wishes of the family. But don't forget that former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu has two identities. There is one which is him as an individual and an asset of the family when he was alive. There are certain things he was doing for his family in his private capacity as a father, as a husband, and so on. Those are private, to which the public have no interest. There were things in the second identity card. There were things that the president was, former president, in his capacity as president of Zambia. Therefore, even in his death, these two identities still subsist. He was not an ordinary person. This was a former president to which we have, as a country, a practice which at law we call opinion. That is to say, notwithstanding that there is no expressly written down or codified law relating to a particular practice or tradition or a norm, if it has been carried on over time, it has assumed legitimacy to carry public expectation that once you have such an occurrence, it must be conducted in a particular way. Because remember, former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is not the last president of Zambia. There will be other presidents. There are 5 presidents who have gone before him. Have they been laid to rest?
And how were they treated? Because also that's another complaint, and that's where this is coming from. The way President Hichilema treated ECL. He highlights, and in various clips, former President Edgar Lungu is seen lamenting on how government treated him. You, as government, did not allow him to travel out of the country for until 2023. 3 times before that, documentations are there. He even challenged it in the courts of law. Of course, that is available in public domain. This is against any minister. And if you see from the next clip where of course he used to complain quite a number of times on how even as government you hijacked the Patriotic Front, the party he was leading, and he refused. So for as long as the party is being hijacked by the UPND government, I have no option but to return to active politics so that I can save the Patriotic Front. But let's hear some of the complaints coming in for ECL, because this is where some of the issues are even coming from.
Politics, I don't think it's something you can retire from, if I am to be honest with you. You can only use your participation in politics you get older, right? Eventually you want to skip away completely. I don't know whether people, Honorable Venon Manga, have retired. From time to time he makes statements on politics. Can you call that retirement? I don't think it's retirement. But I've come to active politics and I will participate because the freedom of myself as an individual, that of my members of the party, that of my family members has been compromised by those who wield powers of the state. Take, for example, what they did to PF. They massacred PF. But PF. They brought in strange characters and said, this is the president of PF. No mandate whatsoever from them. In the party. Right? President. And they go in the night, they change fingerprint. Following morning, they go. That is a criminal act on the part of the state. That you want me to be in retirement? No, I can't. Because Pinky, I will not die peacefully if I was to die today without restoring PF to what it is. By the way, I've been saying to people who serve with the president that, look, we can start talking about reconciliation is for the man to begin restoring democracy. And how he restores democracy to me is by restoring the legitimate leadership into PF where we were on 23rd October 2023, where we had elected leaders like myself as president and us, including our SPs and everybody. Once he restores that, he tells his people in the civil service to say, guys, can you correct this? The register's record to show the true reflection of the leadership of the party and our way to go. They've done that with other parties as a system, and I can't allow that. So we are going to fight. So talk of retirement, you retire when you are comfortable. But when you're an old man and you see things are being messed up, and you sit at the children, no, you put on your warrior garb, you take your spear and your sega and your chamtung, you go and fight with them. That's what they do. That's what I've done. So I've come back because democracy has been disseminated. Democracy is being killed. You know the political parties, they just pick and choose and go and destroy. So I should sit there that you did my part. I'm not yet finished.
Some of the complex of ECL, they are talking about how the government, dismembered the Patriotic Front and, changed the legitimate leadership of the PF. And it was very clear that I'm ready to even reconcile with President Hakainde Hichilema for as long as the PF is restored to its original position. He has also talked about issues to do with immunity, the healthcare being, withdrawn from him, his security being withdrawn for him. He has also talked about various issues to do with his children in court and his wife, and government had been attacking him on all sides. And this is where, Honorable Minister, some of these wishes would want to believe are coming from. You did not treat former President Edgar Lungu well when he was alive, but now you want to take lead in his funeral. You want to bury someone that you treated as government.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And how I wished we were not in this period where remains of former President Edgar Lungu have not yet been put to rest, so that we should have spoken with a different posture.
You spoke to South African media talking about the court cases.
You have asked me a question, so let me answer.
You're saying
let me answer.
Minister,
allow me to answer.
I
you asked me two questions, yes. So allow me to answer.
Yes, I'm just putting
allow
context.
me to answer your question.
I'm just putting context to my question, Honorable Minister.
No. Just give me time to answer. If you haven't answered your question,
go ahead.
Then you go ahead, because you lose me in the maze.
Go ahead.
So I was saying that if we were not still in this during this period, we would have been talking with a different posture. And if you want me to talk about what I said to the South African media, that's nothing. That's nothing. They were just insisting, asking me one question: what is really the problem? What has caused all this? Which today, I don't want to go into that kind of territory. I want us to maintain some modicum which respects the fact that the former president has not yet been put to rest. Therefore, as we speak about him, we as government have an obligation to maintain a certain level of solemnity, because this is not politics. This is a funeral. This is death. Even when someone was a politician, death still pains the family and the friends the same way. Now, I'll proceed to answer your earlier question at the two issues you've raised.
Yes.
One, that the former president about the decimation of the Patriotic Front. I think for today I would just repeat what we have said before. Because we were in the opposition this far of all the political parties surviving and of substance, the longest. Why is it that we survived? Because for the opposition to survive, you need a disciplined leadership and visionary leadership. You need unity of purpose. You need discipline. So if the conduct of your affairs as a political party, you fail to maintain your unity, your cohesion, you can't transplant that to blame others. There were many times in the UPND's history of 20 years in the opposition, 20 years plus, when our members of parliament would be offered to serve as ministers, and they served as ministers without the consent of the party. Some were suspended or expelled before. Later on, others, we realized, will be causing unnecessary by-elections. We let them be, but we maintained the core of the values and ideas we stood for. And that is how we survived. We never went to cry foul to anybody when our members started working with the ruling party. And here we are currently with the situation. And I'm forced to talk about this, which I didn't expect that I would talk about, because you have referred to it, the former president talking about. There was Mayo Samba. Wasn't he the lead person causing the fragmentation of PF? That even at one time he caused he suspended 9 members of parliament of the Patriotic Front. And now that he is back, why are you blaming us and not blaming the right person? That is it. So we leave that as politics. We are in a state of a funeral environment. And now I'll come to the substantive and material issues to do with, former President Lungu's treatment. I want to indicate here that the treatment of the President Lungu, is anchored and should be analyzed from a legal standpoint, that in terms of Article 98 of the Constitution, which confers immunity to a former president or a president for acts or omissions, commissions or omissions done while in office, that you are protected against prosecution. The late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is the first former president of Zambia to leave office, and now unfortunately he has passed on, but to leave office and live with his immunity. All other former presidents who have lived after losing office have had their immunity removed and them arrested and appear before the courts of law. I will give the example of former president Dr. Kaunda. You remember the house arrests and issues of bordering on treason and so on.
The law was different then. The 2016 amended constitution, now the process is quite rigorous, and that's why the president needs to have substantial evidence to check the National Assembly. That's the difference.
Let me remind you that the law in terms of lifting of immunity has essentially been the same. Dr. Chiruba had his immunity lifted. Okay? Rupia Banda had his immunity lifted by the Patriotic Front. And you also have clips, I wish you had played them as well, where Mr. Rupia Banda, the late Rupia Banda, was lamenting victimization. All these former presidents have had their immunities lifted. Former president, late Edgar Chagwa Lungu, is the only one. And the president, and I think you also have that clip, you should have also played it, where President HH is telling the nation to say, citizens, let's be direct and factual. Who has victimized who? Because he even said, if anybody is going to victimize my brother, I will be the first one to stand for him. And I will tell you that for those of us who have been privileged to work very close quarters to the president, he has maintained, even against the wishes of, I can now say, the majority of the people of Zambia, who at some point had wished that the immunity of the former president be lifted because of a number of issues for which should not be subject of debate. But,
yeah, but
that
also,
was
but also,
the perception. Let me finish. That was the perception of the citizens.
Created by you. The perception was created by the government that Lungu and his government were corrupt. You called them mafias. You called them a corrupt bunch. And despite describing them in that context, you failed to lift the immunity. You failed to gather the evidence. Does it mean you're just politicking when you're in opposition?
Well, again, I will indicate to you that former President Edgar Lungu was not an ordinary person. He was an institution, a president. And sometimes there are things that are done that the law provides, which are called done in national interests. You need to understand this, that even a court of law, when they are passing judgment on a particular matter, there is also an element that they consider called national interest, that if a judgment were to go in this particular direction, what are the consequences in terms of the nation? So when a president and or his administration decide that let us not lift the immunity and open a new page so that we begin a new lease of life for our political engagement and discourse, it doesn't mean there were no grounds. It doesn't mean you failed to find grounds. The laws that we promulgate under this particular constitution of the Republic of Zambia, and also the Criminal Procedure Code, Cap 88 of the laws of Zambia, do provide avenues where, even where there is probable cause for the investigative agencies or indeed the court to take action against an individual, there are circumstances which are an exception. You have heard of a concept called a nolle prosequi. And when it is entered, there is no requirement by the state to give reasons why they have withdrawn prosecution of particular matter. The reason is that there could be national interest that the state has seen that if we proceed with this prosecution, this particular undesired absurdity will arise. So those are the circumstances that when a particular thing was not done, it is erroneous to say you failed to find evidence. That was not the issue. So it was never a question of evidence, because for one to say you failed to find evidence, there must have been an investigation.
Despite
but
you,
there was
despite
no,
you describing him as
there was no investigation whatsoever. So the point I want to drive home, my brother,
move to other matters.
Yes, the point I want to drive home is that so the immunity of the former president was intact. He was never called at any police station. He was never even called out to appear before the police.
Different case with his family, from the wife to the children.
The family members have no immunity provided for by any known law in Zambia. Him as former president is protected by Article 98, and under Article 98(9), there are circumstances that the things he can do after he's left office, he is now culpable and the immunity does not apply. So the immunity of a serving president does not extend to a spouse or indeed his family members. And this is a misnomer. I think we need to address, and I think when I last appeared here, I intimated to this very fact that for us who have been privileged to serve the public through a political office, are you saying as citizens, by virtue of the fact that we are politicians or those related to us, we begin to enjoy immunity against legal prosecution? Because so to do amounts to persecution and not prosecution. I think that is anomalous. It will be a failure of duty to upholding the rule of law, which, you know, treats all citizens equal before the law, and that the law is supreme. Such is the case. Now, unless you are telling me that going forward in future, the president who will be in office, that their relatives and friends, they can do anything because they are related to a particular president.
We'll pick up some of these matters after the barrier, Honorable Minister. You know, moving on to other matters. Many people have argued, you've taken time, Honorable Minister, to explain that there is a precedent that has been set. And that's the reason why, despite the wishes of the family being inexistent, the precedent must be followed. It's a source of law. And many Zambians understand that. But they also think it is a selective application of this same law when there is a precedent on the official residence of the president. President Hichilema will become the first in the history of this country to live outside Nkwazi House, the State House, despite a precedent being set. Yet you don't want the wishes of ECL being respected, but your president is going against the precedent that has been set.
Well, I think that I'm finding it difficult to marry your question or the analogy you have drawn, because the two are quite different.
Yeah, but we're talking about precedent here, Honorable Minister.
I will come to that. I will come to that. But maybe if you allowed me just a moment, because I had not finished on the issue I had raised about complaints over the former president, and we have seen the Secretary General of PF, Mr. Nakachinda, going all over misinforming the world that the former president had, and together with Honorable Lubinda and that team, that the former president had his entitlements withdrawn from him. Well, I think that we have an obligation as government to place the record straight for posterity, that the entitlements of a former president are codified in an act of parliament called the Former President's Benefits Act Cap 15 of the laws of Zambia, wherein at section 4 of that particular act, it provides for the entitlements, and it states that when a former president has left active politics, such a one is entitled to a number of benefits, such as a motor vehicle, medical attention, travel, return air ticket to any destination once, pay, security, housing, and it's just a paraphernalia, office space, a number of staffer at such an office to be determined by cabinet from time to time. Those were given to President Lungu in line with the letter he wrote. I think that was on the 26th of August 2021, where he wrote to Secretary to Cabinet indicating that he had retired from active politics. So he began to enjoy all those amenities in line with the former President's Benefits Act Caps 15 of the laws of Zambia. But no sooner had he announced, and I think it was on the 28th of October 2023, that he had returned to active politics, then the law kicked in. And I do recall him addressing his supporters, saying that he was returning back to active politics, Shirifo Tuma sharing to the Tuma entitlements utu. I've actually instructed my wife, she's packing now, we are leaving the house that government is paying because I'm coming into active politics. Now, those are the realities of the moment that we must confront in ensuring that the nation and indeed the world is not misled that the entitlements of the president were taken away in the like manner that Mr. Rupia Banda, once MMD announced him that he was the leader of the MMD, away from him being in retirement of active politics, the government of the day then, the previous administration, announced to the nation that the former President's Benefit Act, Cap 15 of the laws of Zambia, Section 5, had kicked in to stop the enjoyment of those entitlements conferred by law to a former president. So we do not now see the necessity where the things that were right then, and this law, remember, is as old as 1993, that now, because it is a different administration, this law should apply differently. I must also indicate that it was actually interesting that it is a former Attorney General who served under the previous administration, who, I think on 3rd November 2023, wrote to the Attorney General, present Attorney General, saying that why have you, through Secretary to Cabinet, written to our client that you are taking away his presidential entitlements? These are an affront to the Constitution. But so these inconsistencies are not good for the cohesion of a nation, and that what happens to one must apply to all without discrimination. That is why we as government are saying that the treatment of a former president has already been synchronized by the standard practice that we have set out and established for ourselves. And it is our humble and well considered view that it would have been a necessity and an imperative for the former president Edgar Chagwa to be buried in this country, because let's also not be narrow and be swallowed in the sensitivities of the moment, forgetting that there is tomorrow, when we must now look back and say, what did we do as a country? Remember, now begin to imagine, as are realities, what are the implications of former president? Let me use the example of Rupia Banda, because he had actually strong ties with Zimbabwe, that he was born in Zimbabwe. Now imagine that he was president of Zambia, and for some good reason being fronted, either for political reasons or for whatever the reasons, he is buried in Zimbabwe. What is the implication? The implication is that you are putting a seed of division in the minds of General Kam, because as they go to Embassy Park, they will find all the former presidents of Zambia buried there except one, and they will be asking why.
Because government
and when they
government
look,
insisted on their demands. That's the reason.
It is me talking. It's not you.
No, I'm giving an answer to your question. That's what people are saying. This will happen because government is not ready to compromise, Honorable Minister. And that's my question. Do you see President Hakainde Hichilema compromising on this?
President HH has always been compromising. And that is why the citizens know that at some stage they even began to ask, say, but where is the president? Why is he not addressing the nation for him to show leadership and authority, that it's not him now, it is the president who we elected and gave a mandate to run the affairs of this country. So let's not forget, let's not approach this matter with simplicity of what one has said. Let us remember that we have a government and a country to run, and there is one, and not two, one person to whom we as citizens, all of us, we have surrendered our individual sovereignty, that he becomes our chief representative. it should not sound, nice that because it is President HH, then we must begin to simplify things. No, HH, we don't want him here. He should not attend. No, HH should not do this. HH as an individual has his own private issues. Now we are talking about a president who swore to defend this constitution. And through this constitution, we as a country have established practices that have assumed significant legal force that they can be relied upon. Just like when you go to a court of